Hey, how's it going? My name is David. I'm here to talk about UV. So you can think of it as a pip replacement, poetry replacement, and some notes and outline and examples will be in this repo. So don't feel like you have to jot down notes or anything. So this is our homepage. I'll cover a couple of the highlights here. So it's made in Rust, and it caches your dependencies in a central place. Yeah, it has that global cache, and then it hard links everything into your virtual environments. So it's really fast. I had a Windows laptop in like a constrained environment at a client, and the pip install dot would take like 10 to 12 minutes. It was pretty bad, partly because I was trying to put in Azure CLI as a direct dependency, but a UV pip install dot took like a minute and a half, and that was quite nice. I'll touch on the scripts later. Yeah, it'll manage your Python versions for you. It'll download like a static build of it. There are workspaces I haven't used before, but looks helpful if you're doing a monorepo. Here's a little comparison chart. They started by making a pip subcommand, which seems like a really smart idea, because then you can easily just migrate over. But yeah, pip compile from pip tools is there. UVX is the equivalent of pipex. Like a poetry add would be the same as a UV add, and they both operate off of a PyProject.toml, and haven't used UV publish yet, but we've seen that. And yeah, there's UV venv, which will create like a little virtual environment. So released very recently, last year plus a couple months. They added the project type commands later, like sync, add. Some more little comparisons. You see it's the pip install is pretty equivalent. The pip compile is a little bit different syntax. Speaking of that, let me jump over to a demo real quick. Make this big enough. Right in there. Yeah, so you can jump straight into an existing Python project if you use like the requirements.in to have your real dependencies, and then the requirements.txt to have your dependencies of your dependencies. It would be a UV venv. It's using the system Python in this case. Let me jump into my virtual environment and do just UV pip install. And I had just previously deleted the cache directory before this, so yes, pretty fast. Let me show you what the cache directory looks like, just so you're familiar with it. Those must be in the wheels. There was an environment directory before. That's just what it looks like. Yeah. And yeah, the project commands are add, remove. The run is really nice. If you have a PyProject.toml, it will make the virtual environment, do the sync, which makes a uv.lock file and downloads all the dependencies into your virtual environment, and then it will run And it will download Python too if needed, and then run your Python scripts for you. It's real nice. Let me show you a UV init real quick. Yeah, so jumping back, let me make just a new. Oh, I don't need to make dir. I can just UV init project. Cool. Initialize one, and let me show you what it adds by default. Python version, which it prospects, and just a bare bones project tunnel. And I'm in my old virtual environment. Let me jump out of there real quick. And get to new project. And then let me copy over this main.py actually and show you that. This is a little fast API hello world. And yeah, so I've CD'd into my new project here. I've not entered a virtual environment at all. I've not downloaded any packages. There's no .venv, but I can do a UV run, fast API, dev, main.py, and I have 0 dependencies. That will probably help to add that. UV add, fast API, standard. There it goes. Add that defined there, and let me go and run it. Nice. Should just see a little hello world. Cool. Yeah, and it will download new. It will download the Python version for you on the fly as well. Let me show that real quick. Maybe something old. And let me also change the Python version in here too. And bail out of that, and then do the same UV run. It must have had cache because that must have had Python 3.9 cache because that was a bit too quick. I know I've not experimented with 3.7. We should do that. If that's still in the repos. Okay, change it in PyProject Toml and Python version. There we go. So yeah, downloads it, but some
notifies that it's too old.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and a UV lock is similar to like a package lock JSON or kind of similar to that. Same idea. Jump here. Oh, and I didn't say at the beginning, please feel free to raise your hand with questions or anything like that. Okay. Yeah, one thing I found that I ended up really liking and brought into some of my, not the data engineering side of work, but more into the DevOps side that I was doing before. You can make scripts with a little comment section up top. It follows this HEP standard, and you can even define the Python version there, and then you can UV run your script, and then it will make a virtual environment on the fly, download Python if needed, download all your dependencies, run it, and I really like that. Let me show that real quick. Okay, this is just a, let me not use that one actually. I grabbed one of their scripts here. Let me show you what it looks like just to start from just a normal Python script. Get peps. It grabs this peps JSON. And yeah, so Right now I don't have rich installed or request. I can do UV add script, point to it, add requests. Am I in the right? Oh, sorry about that. I am in the wrong folder. There we go. And let me add a rich to. Nice. So yeah, now you can do a UV run. Completion sometimes doesn't work for me, which I don't quite get yet. But yeah, makes a virtual environment, links everything in. I saw I had to download them, but it would link everything in on the second run and just be really fast. There's also a little shebang you can add to the top, and then you don't have to specify UV run at all. Throw the end up here. And let me make sure I don't have this already in my user local bin because I was messing around with that. Okay, yeah, so if I copy get peps into my paths, cool, is there, I forgot to make it executable. Okay, now it's on my path. Let me just jump to new show. I've got a get peps on my path. I'm not doing UV run or anything. Yeah, it will still grab everything on the fly and be nice and self-contained. Yeah, and if you need to develop on the script and not just write short little one-offs, you'll probably want to do UV sync to get a .venv file or folder all set up. Yeah, because it is written in Rust and has like a self-contained binary as the final output, you can add it to an existing, it doesn't even need to be a Python container, with just copy -from, point to it, and then it's grabbing UV binary and the UVX binary from this container and then putting it in your container ender bin. And then GitHub Actions has support as well, or they support it. They made their own action for it. So yeah, you can install it with brew install or winget on Windows. Any questions? Or I forgot to ask at the beginning, how many people are actually using UV already? Oh, good. So hopefully this was a good talk.
Okay, all the people who didn't raise their hand, why not?
I have a question.
Yeah, hold on, let me bring the mic so that people online can hear you. So I know with like AI and ML projects, it can be really common for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with a Python workflow to try to like run something locally. And it can be pretty jarring, like having to install Python and install pip and create the VM. Is it common or should it be common for people to use UV and their like startup instructions to make it easier for newcomers?
Yeah. And I think so. I got started with UV because of that, the long build time, and I was writing some automation for people that didn't know how to run Python, and yeah, it was difficult to get the right Python version installed, and then make the virtual environment, make sure you actually jump into it and PowerShell Python. But yeah, switching to UV made it just a UV run main, and then it just takes care of all that, and it was really helpful.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'll ask a question since I got the microphone. Is there some kind of a like dir like one-liner you can use to activate those things automatically as you go into the directories?
Yeah. I haven't used that. is it Turkey now? I think there's a couple other ones that do that. Yeah, I just played with it briefly a couple years ago. Have you used it much?
I think if they go to the community wiki and the Python page would probably be there. It's a Python underdog, yeah.
Oh, nice.
We want them. Yep, go
Nice.
at the very bottom.
Yeah, nice. Do you use Durim a lot?
I do. I mean, extensively because it's. I don't think we work on so many different projects. So moving between them, I'll forget to like deactivate my virtual environment, things like that, and this handles it for you.
That's nice.
We also got questions for David.
So if I have a project that's using Poetry and already has a Pi project toml, like is there a migration path for Poetry to EUV?
Yeah, trying to think if I've done that to a project I had Poetry on. Like I can't remember. What would you have to do? I'm tempted to say it would just work, but I'm not sure if it's that simple. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it has a Pi project toml, and I can't think of anything that would not be compatible.
No recent versions of Poetry have moved more towards standard app or their pet project comic mark.
Oh, okay.
It should make it.
Yeah. Nice. I didn't know that.
Who else has got questions?
Very just look like.
So what is UV solving that is not solved by Poetry or pipenv or any of those others?
Yeah, I think the downline of like the static Python distributions. Can Poetry make a virtual environment? Zoom now?
Yeah, it does.
It does?
Yeah, it manages that too. I don't think it downloads a Python environment.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you use Python,
That and the global cache probably is the main benefit. Download your dependencies in one place, and then just you can RMRF your virtual environment and then recreate it, and it'll hard link everything without copying files. It works like PNPM if you come across that. Same concept. Yeah.
Other questions for David? Is there any reasons anyone should not use UV?
I can't think of any.
I think if you mentioned Brew installing it on a Mac, but I believe if you go through the more standard installer, like the cargo version installer, it'll keep UV up to date automatically, where the Brew version won't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you do the curl like one-liner, yeah, that will keep it up to date automatically, where the Brew one you're kind of expected to use Homebrew to keep it up to date.
Okay. Nice.
Anyone else? Going once? Come on, we got more. Guess someone's got a burning question about UV, sir.
Yeah.
is that a framework? How do you like it?
Oh, yes, it is.
There's a question about the laptop.
Yeah. I do like it. I'm trying to think of any issues. Yeah, I swap ports out occasionally, not too often, but yeah, I do like. There's a little bit of peace of mind knowing that you can just break part of your laptop and just replace that part. I'm also looking forward to swapping out just like the system board after a few years instead of the whole entire laptop. Oh, framework's like a modular laptop. You can replace parts. It's supposed to be more repairable.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome. Yeah. Any more questions?
This isn't so much a question as somebody asked about reasons not to use UV. There's two minor gotchas with UV, and they both revolve around its virtual env and attempt to replace pip. So UV's pip command does not support like egg URLs. So if you're doing like nightly builds or pulling specific versions off of like GitHub or anything like that, it chokes completely on those and won't do it. And then the second is it's a great drop-in for virtual apps, but it does not include pip in the virtual env. So if you have any build scripts or anything that use pip, even though you've activated its virtual env, you will be installing and polluting your system Python.
Nice. Yeah. Good points. That explained a few days ago, I was trying to use UVX with egg in there for the first time, and I thought I was just doing something wrong. Okay. That's really good.
I've got a third one for you.
Okay.
Sometimes you may run into trouble when there's static linking of like C compiled extensions.
Oh,
And so depending on what environment you're running and what environment that was compiled in, you could get an incompatible like down a wheel into the system. So I've run into that with especially like machine learning stuff. So sometimes you get weird stuff.
yeah. Which,
There are definitely edge cases. Awesome. Any more questions for David? Let's give David a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Well, we're going to do a little bit of a battle of the bots tonight. We've got, I think I took on a very ambitious task, which was I was going to originally just demo generative AI and some aiding coding tools to you. And I thought about just demoing only Aider, which is kind of the one I've been using recently. And then, of course, I thought, well, we could do more. Like, let's try 5 different coding agents simultaneously in this challenge, this battle, and we'll see what happens. So, my name is Calvin Hendryx-Parker. I'm CTO and co-founder of 6 Feet Up. I'm excited to be here. I love IndyPy. I love the community, and I love giving presentations about cool stuff. So it's kind of like my version of the kindergarten show and tell. So here we go. So with hold on. This is not the most recent version of my talk. Oh no, it is. I reordered it. That's what happens when you produce your talk minutes before giving it. You forget what's actually happening sometimes. So a lot's happened in the last year. I mean, a lot's happened since ChatGPT came out, and then coding agents have really kind of come into full bloom. According to the GitHub AI software survey, they claim that more than 97% of the respondents have been reported using AI coding tools in some capacity in their work, which I'm doubting that number. I think that's still high, but that's what they got from whoever they surveyed. It's definitely been a rapid evolution over the last year. And we've gone from just asking ChatGPT in the web browser how to like code something up or, give me a quick script for something to full-blown agents that can now act on your behalf in your computer and do work. So that's what we're going to actually show off here. And again, I think why this all matters is like they're definitely transforming how we build software. If you are not enabled or augmenting your current coding skills by using these AI tools, you're going to be beat out by somebody who is. It's just pretty simple fact that these tools are getting really powerful. And even if you work at a place where they claim you can't use outside third-party AI tools, the capacity for your local machines to run local models that are actually useful is pretty real. Like I'm running Ollama on my machine here. I can run Mistral Small. I can run Llama 3.2 or 3.3. I can run DeepSeek R1 with a 14B variant that's actually quite good. It doesn't do completely stupid stuff. So those things never leave my laptops, which means these tools are all very usable for everyone today. But choosing the right tool can be frustrating. I'm going to show off, again, I went through 5 different coding agent tools, and there's definitely differences between them that are going to be, I think, interesting to look at. Actually, one second. I forgot to pull up my slides here. I should use the real keyboard because that's what it's for. That is not on this window. There it go. There we go. Now that's better. Okay. My goodness. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. The contenders. I looked at Aider, which had been kind of my favorite all along. For those of you who aren't familiar with Aider, it's going to be a command line tool. It is very integrated with the Git workflow. When you launch Aider, it immediately maps your whole repository of files that are on your system. And that's one of the things I really liked about it. So that's why I considered Aider kind of top of my top list there. The new one on this list is Claude Code, only released, I think, a few weeks ago. That's from Anthropic. It is, again, a command line tool. You install it with NPM. So if you're not used to terminal usage, I think a lot of people might be intimidated by it, but I find it to also be a really good contender as well. Cursor, folks who have used VS Code will be very familiar with something like Cursor. That is basically a editor integrated solution that is using cursor.com's servers to basically proxy your coding requests off into various other servers, and we'll talk about those. Another new one to me was Goose. The folks from Block, which is what was, I think, Square, is renamed themselves to Block. They open sourced Goose. They originally, I'll show it off because it's kind of a fun one. It has a GUI. It also runs on the command line. And it has a lot of great MCP capabilities, which I'll talk about too. And there's a bonus one on here that is probably not really available yet, but I got early access to the JetBrains Junie integrated editor AI as well. So that's agentic assistant that's built into JetBrains product. Well, right now it's only available on a couple of the products, and you have to have a license for those, like Python Professional or IntelliJ, or a couple of the more bigger licensed products. So we've gone from basically basic code completion, kind of a step of like an IDE, glorified IDE where it can complete your code, to now full-fledged pair programmers, like, basically like kind of maybe a glorified intern that can help you with your code. So I talked about AI agents. This is kind of that step that has made these tools more useful. Is that the AI agent can actually look around its environment. It's going to be given a set of tools that enable it to do more for you and discover things. So if you tell it, describe this project to me, it will, ls the directory. It will cat certain files that look interesting, and it will reason about, like, oh, I found this and I found that. This looks like a Django project. I can now go look in these other areas because I know what the typical structure of a Django project looks like. So it can make these decisions autonomously. And so you can kind of like set one of these off to go. I was talking to another CTO. He's been playing with some of these agentic AIs. I think the longest he's gotten one of them to go on its own was about 28 minutes that it sat and reasoned and figured and go and would just like kind of churn through on whatever task he'd given it. But that's because it can now access external data, current files, take action, edit files, run commands that are in your development environment like you would run those commands. So it can take those actions again to achieve a specific goal. And then it learns from the feedback. It's listening to the standard out from those tools, trying to understand like what the output was something not successful. That's kind of one of the, I think, hallmarks of like Cursor. Cursor will sit and like really try hard to figure out why it went wrong, why am I wrong, more than maybe some of the others, and then learn from those interactions and feedback. And then you can chain many of these things all together. On top of that, they basically, a key characteristic of these AI agents in the context of the development world, because there's lots of misused words in the AI world right now. So some people will be like, oh, you're using AI. Everyone's talking about AI and they're using the words wrong. But what I'm talking about AI right now and the agents I'm talking about are in the context of doing development. So it's basically, it means we can use tools, file systems, web search, code execution. We can basically plan and architect and think about a problem that the AI you put the AI to task for. It has memory, so it can basically capture the whole session of things that it's talking about, and then you're talking about with it. One of the really cool features of Claude Code is that it will take if the memory starts getting too long to fit into the context window of the AI models you're sending it to, it will re-summarize and then discard all the old stuff and kind of start over with the new summary of where the current state of the world is. So it's one interesting way that it manages your context window. And then that self-improvement through feedback loops. These tools are accessed typically via something called MCP. So who here knows what Model Context Protocol is? Okay, so it's just a fancy set of words for we wrote some stuff in between your stuff and our stuff so that your AI tools can find it and know how to use it. So think about if you've got local resources like your file system, your developer tools like the Unix commands, or if you've got a remote resource like a set of documentation or some kind of source of data that you want your AI agents to be able to leverage, they're going to use this MCP protocol so they basically can describe back to the tool in natural language that the LLMs can understand about how to use the tool. So I can say, actually, I'm going to give a demo of that one because this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Brought out trackpad too because I don't have to reach over my laptop. That's much better. Okay, so here I've got the Goose desktop app open.
Calvin, is there any way to make that bigger?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Oh yeah, I can. Look at that. Heck yeah.
Shit.
Okay.
Let's hit the sideline one right here. Good.
So what I've got installed here is the MCP for Playwright. Microsoft released a Playwright MCP server that runs locally. So what Goose has done behind the covers, and for the first time you ask it to use tools it doesn't know about, it will install some kind of a package that runs locally or knows how to talk to something running remotely. See if this works. Yeah, so this is going to launch my default browser and should navigate to a page using Playwright. Yeah, there it goes. Look at that. It's cool. And then what's nice is that Goose now has access in its context to all the content that was in that page. And so I can say, click on app dev. And it will click on app dev. And I can say, fill in the search box with the term Django. And it should find the search. There it goes, filled in. So you can sit and automate and talk to the web page and actually go get multiple web pages content, combine them into multiple contexts and say, compare this page and this page, or using the data from these 2 pages, 3 pages, summarize some kind of aspect. And so that's what MCP is actually doing here. Is there's a protocol between Goose and the Playwright server running locally, and that's negotiating how to call these APIs. Because I didn't have to be specific about how I called them, but the MCP told Goose, like, well, generally, if someone's asking to click on something, it's probably going to be coming from this MCP protocol that's back here. That's how that works. So that's MCP in a literal nutshell. Just a way for you to get access to those kinds of tools. So that's actually, I kind of jumped ahead. That was the tool I wanted to show you was Playwright for your AI tools. There's tons of these out there. Tons and tons and tons of these out there already. The AWS documentation, for example. By the way, this whole presentation is up on GitHub in the 6 Feet Up org. If you just look for IndyPy, you'll find this presentation. All of these links are live and go to stuff. Like that one goes to the GitHub for AWS, who released a whole slew of MCP servers for accessing the AWS docs, interrogating your environments, like talking to lambdas, all kinds of stuff is actually now packed into some of these MCP servers. Now, also be careful, because this is all brand new, wild west territory, and there's tons and tons and tons of things that can go wrong as you're talking to these things. There was something released today, a security report about, I think I actually put it on my, right here. New vulnerability in GitHub Copilot and Cursor. They are weaponizing the Cursor hints file and the Copilot hints file by putting in non-printing characters that the LLMs will interpret and do bad stuff. So again, be careful. There are crazy people doing crazy stuff out there.
Now, if you're working on an internal system and you've got internal tools and internal configuration files, that's probably less of an issue. But this is because they're targeting open source projects who may have a cursor rules policy that's published and used by people who are editing this library online. So that's kind of a attack vector that's happening right now. So just be aware. There's eyes wide open is all magic, but it also could do bad stuff. So yeah, in practice, we want to connect our AI assistants to these MCPs. We want to be able to ask natural language queries. We want to be able to generate, specific CLI commands and get results from those commands and do something with them. Okay, let's talk about those tools. So I kicked it off with Aider. So it is a command line tool. It is open source. One of the favorite thing I like about Aider is it supports multiple LLMs. You bring your own. You want to use Ollama. You want to use Claude. You want to use DeepSeek. You want to use, you name a model that's out there. Aider can most likely use it. There's a huge set of configurations built into Aider. You provide some API keys, and you can use things via OpenRouter or Fireworks or any number of these places that are hosting models for you. Because, for example, you probably don't want to run DeepSeek using the Chinese DeepSeek servers. Just going to put that out there. But there are people hosting DeepSeek in servers that are more trusted that you could use, as an example. It's semi-agentic. So some of the other tools, most of the other tools I'll talk about are kind of full agentic. Like they will go off and do lots and lots of stuff. I find that Aider will still ask you lots of questions and kind of walk you through the steps. I don't think it's ready to give full unleashed power there. It does not currently support MCP. Although, funny enough, someone has written an MCP server to talk to Aider, so you can use Aider as an MCP tool for other LLM tools you would be using. More on that later. It does support voice interactions, which is kind of fun. I'll show that off in the demo. And again, you can use multiple. The other power I find with Aider is you can use multiple models in the same session. So if I'm using Aider, it's got an architect mode, it's got an editor mode, and then it's going to have a weak model. Those can be 3 different models based on how you feel or these models interact with your code base and your workload. So you could have a reasoning model for the architect. You can have a Sonnet for your coder, and you may be using O1 Mini for the weak model for those quick. It determines whether it needs to do some quick operations, and it may default back down to a weak model. So this actually really is nice because you get that mixture of the different styles that those LLMs can bring to the table. And so you can kind of put the best, pieces in play. I'll show you, they have a leaderboard, which is kind of nice, that shows off the current combinations and costs and things like that. Next one I looked at was Claude Code. It is proprietary, and it is linked to only the Claude models. So if you want to use other models, you're kind of out of luck with Claude Code. That being said, it's pretty good. I did do a little bit of work with it. I'll show off in the demo. The internals of Claude Code itself is a command line tool you install with npm. But you don't have access to the code. You don't have access to change it. You don't have access to extend it, other than it does support MCP. So it has great support for MCP because the MCP protocol has been basically shepherded by Anthropic into the community. So anything Anthropic is doing, they're doing really well, and they basically integrate all those tools and protocols into what they're building. It is fully agentic with reasoning capabilities, so it can use the thinking mode of 3.7. Out of the box by default, it uses Claude 3.7, but you can tell it to back down. I think it uses Claude 3.7 for the normal mode and Claude 3.5 for the fast weak model mode. So it does actually support 2 different models simultaneously in Claude Code. Cursor, which, funny enough, was acquired by Anthropic, is a proprietary editor extension for VS Code, basically. They took open source VS Code, they repackaged it into a thing called Cursor. So if you install Cursor and you're like, man, this looks like VS Code, it is under the covers. So it's a proprietary editor with open source components, but all the AI bits of Cursor are themselves proprietary. It does support actually more than OpenAI and Anthropic. It also supports the Google Gemini models out of the box now too. It's fully agentic with full project navigation. It does support MCP, so you can hook it up to additional tools. One of the things I really like about Cursor I'm not a VS Code fan to begin with. I'm not a fan of. You'll hear my opinions as we go. I'm not a fan of embedded AI agents in various IDEs, but Cursor does have a really good system of applying what it's called Cursor rules. So as we go forward and want to edit projects, you want to have things like your coding standards for your project into a conventions file. So you can tell the AI, hey, when you're editing on this project, we always use pip to install, or we always use UV. We use UV to install stuff. We manage our virtual environments with UV. We always install our node packages with NPM or whatever your preferred package manager is. And then it can follow those standards as it does the work for you. Cursor allows you to have multiple versions of these convention files. So you could have a convention file that is my infrastructure conventions, my Python conventions, my node conventions, and you can get really, really detailed in each of those specific conventions. It's almost like you've got multiple active AI agents who are specialists now in these various things, and you just configure them by the various rule files, and those various rule files will automatically apply based on pattern matching against the file name. So if you've got a Terraform HCL file, it'll know to activate that rules file and not like the JavaScript rules file. And why is that important? Because it's all about context. If you feed so much stuff into the context window of these AI models, sometimes it'll be too big, it'll cost a lot, and it'll get confused because it'll be like, well, he was talking about Python, and now he's talking about Terraform, and maybe I'll use the Python convention on the Terraform. I don't know. Maybe they do get confused. They are very, very fancy interns. So I think at this level, they're getting better, but you have to guide them. If you're good at guiding them, you're going to get a lot of great results out of them. If you're not good at guiding them, good luck. You're going to get. It's kind of garbage in, garbage out. If you aren't good at guiding an intern, you may not be good at using these tools. So you kind of have to work on some core, personal skills, how you communicate with your computer, just the same way you would communicate with anybody else to make these things actually work well. So Cursor has a feature that helps with that, with these multiple rule files. Goose. This one I learned about just a couple weeks ago while I was actually at the All Things OpenAI conference. Open source by Block. I did show off the MCP with the desktop version of it. They built a tool that their whole company uses, not just the developers, like the people in finance, the people in HR, the project managers. They're all using Goose across the whole company because Goose can do more than just like code stuff. Like it's not just stuck in a terminal like Aider and Claude Code. It's not just stuck in an IDE like Cursor or Junie. Goose can be run in a couple different ways, which is kind of nice. So people can actually use it to go collect data and do some operation against it and use it in all these kind of different new ways. So that's why I put it on the list, because I felt like it was really an up and coming, and I find it to be quite effective. It does support multiple LLM models. You can bring your own, just like Aider. You can tell it to use local models with Olama or anything running on your local machine. Plus all the Google models, all the Claude Anthropic models, all the OpenAI models, they're all available to you as well. It is fully agentic, so that's kind of the big difference between Aider and Goose. It is a fully agentic, and it supports MCP, and it supports OpenRouter. So if you've not checked out OpenRouter.ai, you can basically use that to have access, a single kind of endpoint access to a multitude of models, kind of pay one bill, route everything through one spot. So you can use OpenRouter and now have basically easy access without having to manage a bazillion API keys for those kinds of tools. So that's one of the things I like about Goose is the open, bring your own models. It is open source. Like Goose itself is open source. The code for Goose is available. You can view it, change it, do whatever you want with it. This last one was kind of a bonus because I know the JetBrains folks. It is proprietary. It does require a PyCharm subscription. It does require early access approval. They have to give you, a special code to get into it. So I wouldn't expect most folks are going to go off and try and use Junie. But if you're curious, you are a big JetBrains fan, this is what's coming. It is a fully agentic. It is currently using Claude 3.7 Sonnet, although it'll lie to you through its teeth and tell you that it's using Claude 3 Opus, which not. It's using 3.7 Sonnet, they claim anyway. There's a Discord, you can hang out and check it all out. I'll show a quick demo, but it's really similar, probably in comparison to Cursor, but still limited, still early days. All of these have kind of their strengths and weaknesses all in there. In the slides, there is a nice little table that kind of summarizes everything I just said. I really appreciate the ones that are open source. I do love the ones that have MCP. I do love the ones that are fully agentic. If you look across that table, Goose is a big contender there because it checks all those boxes. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily the winner, and you'll see why. Now, the coding models that are available, Aider has a great leaderboard. Actually, I'll pull that open because I should have it. Yes. This leaderboard, I'll make that bigger before anyone yells. Then it'll happen. And this changes on like the daily. They run these benchmarks. If you all are familiar with like Hugging Face leaderboards, so Hugging Face publishes like LLM leaderboards, like security leaderboards, threat leaderboards. This is one that it's the polyglot coding leaderboard. So there's a polyglot benchmark test that they run against certain combinations of models that are running in Aider. And what's interesting, what I like about this is you get the command that they ran against for the test. So if you want to try the top of the top, the thing that's winning and giving you like the 73% correct answers, you can copy paste that into your terminal and you can run it, and you're now using that set of like opinions about how this all runs. Just be careful. For example, whereas the O1 high for the same test costs $186 to run through the polyglot benchmark, as opposed to Gemini 2.5 Pro, which was only $6.32 and performed better. So you get kind of a cost comparison in here. There are some very inexpensive ones. DeepSeek V3, $1.12, and still performed quite well compared to some of the other options that are down in here. But yeah, they run all these on a, oh, there's another big one. That was the one I showed you. 4.5 preview, $183. So be careful. These are still real dollars that you're running through all these tools. Every one of them is using the API version of the various chat options. So this is not the same thing as if you go to Claude AI or ChatGPT and start talking to them. Those are kind of guided experiences that are in your web browser and have certain system prompts applied to them. These are, you've gone to the developer tools, you set up an API key, you're accessing the APIs directly, and you're getting paid per number of tokens that you talk to these various systems. So something again to be aware of as you're using these various tools is that if you choose poorly, you could be paying highly for an okay experience. Oh yeah, 73 cents. Grok 3 Mini. I've not tried. Has anyone tried Grok's LLMs, like the Grok ones from XAI? Sorry, they're not merged yet, I don't think. I haven't either. And I don't know if that's just personal bias or what, but I haven't tried it. So yeah, that's fun benchmark. And then the Aider docs are actually really, really good. So now the fun part, the demo. I would love to have been able to run all 5 of these live for you. So what I did was I ran some of them live, some of them ahead of time, and run some of them live. Given that these large language models are non-deterministic, we'll get non-deterministic results. So it should be fun. So what I did for the demo, 6 Feet Up has developed a scaffolding framework called Scaf, and we have a full stack template that basically outputs a Django project ready to go with our opinions in it. So it's local development on Kubernetes using Kind and Tilt. It's deploying blah blah blah. I'm not worried about the deployment part because I only did the local part of this. So what I did was I created 5 blank scaffolds out there. They all run, they all work, and then I said the Scaf project has a Next.js front end in it, and that Next.js front end uses GraphQL APIs. And I said I want to convert this to REST. So going from a GraphQL API to a REST API, this is the total prompt we use as kind of our benchmark to see if any of these tools would work. I can tell you not many of them will work out of the box, and I'll explain why. And these are the things you're going to need to do to make them work for you, which should hopefully be helpful. The first one I'll look at, again, Aider. Each of the tools has some way of specifying conventions that it will read automatically as you launch the tools. Aider's is going to be having a conventions markdown file in the root of your project. So in there you can put in how you feel about Python and how you feel about JavaScript and how you feel about all the technologies that are in the stack. Also, you can tell it how you should perform certain actions. How many people have developed in Django? Here's some Django devs in the room. So if you ever play with Django, you typically create a Django app on your local system, and you'll run the Django admin like create project command, and then you may go and run the Django create app command to make like applications inside of it. Well, if those are running in containers inside of Kubernetes running on your local machine, Aider doesn't know how to do that. Like it's going to think, because all the world pretty much says you should run this command line tool to make a new Django app, but it doesn't know how to get to it inside the container. So that's where these convention files come in. You teach the AI how to do these things, and then from there on out, it just does, should just do them for you. I already mentioned some of the other things here. There are the abilities to use external editors in Aider. So let's actually just fire up Aider here. Wait. Nice, it worked. Even better. I normally yell that for my text size here. Okay, everybody read that?
Yep.
All right, sweet. So actually what I've got here, I have running. So this is what tilt looks like. So tilt is again, it's a rabbit hole in our topic, but this is the management thing we use to manage our local Kubernetes running instance. And so inside of here, there's a backend container pod that's running our Django application. When I run things like create superuser or make migrations or migrate, those commands need to run in that container. So that's what I had to basically teach Aider to do. And so I did that ahead of time. Aider, I went ahead and ran through this whole thing ahead of time because it was going to be too hard to do. That's the wrong one. Another nice feature about Aider, everything's on the file system. So there is inside of here an Aider input history and an Aider chat history. Now, the other tools have it. It's buried in lots of different places. I like the fact that Aider just puts it in your working directory, because what I want to show is, oops. Oh, I can look at my own screen. Here we go. Chat history. Here we go. So this is everything I talked to with Aider and everything it said back to me all in one file, which is, again, very handy. It started up Aider and then asked me a question. And then what I did was I set up Aider to use DeepSeek R1 and as the main model. And then I used the editor model as Claude Sonnet 3.7 in this case. And then it also used the weak model of DeepSeek R3, or V3, sorry. So I got two different DeepSeek models and the Sonnet model all working together in this one example. The important bit is this. I basically told it, I want to start off my project by saying, look at my structure of my project, create that, this conventions file didn't exist. I said, go ahead and create the conventions file for me. So it can do that. You can tell it, create the file, put in there all the things you learned by kind of exploring my directory structure. And because of Aider's ability to look at a GitHub, Git repository locally, it can sense and feel out what kind of a project you got. It like looked into the back end, so you got a Django project, looked in the front end, you got an XJS project in there. They look like standard layouts. Now I know what I'm dealing with. So that's what it is. So she said, it went ahead and created a conventions file at the root. So I said, make sure you note that we're using a local development environment of a kind Kubernetes cluster that is managed by tilt. All Django commands will need to be run in the container running in the cluster. Same goes for npm commands on the front end. So I gave it a prompt saying, I know this about my environment. Please see if you can figure out how to make that happen on the backside. And it did. It went through and documented, this is the output. It documented all this into this markdown file on the local file system, which actually would probably be easier to show you inside of like PyCharm. We'll make that bigger and get rid of this and this. So again, this is what a typical conventions file will look like. It has information in here about local development with tilt. It knows how to talk to the backend containers by looking up what the name of the containers are using kubectl get pods. Then it knows to use that backend pod name with a manage command. So it puts these like little templates and examples into the docs, which are also really nice as humans. Like we can use this same documentation to tell someone else how to like work on our project. So again, I give it kudos for being nice and easy to use like this. So that is the output of that. I'm going to show you.
Stick here.
Let, oh, yeah. Expect that to fail. That's fine. Okay. So another nice thing about Aider, so Scaf makes an initial commit. Every other commit that I made using Aider will be noted in the author. Mary, I think the thing I like about Aider is its Git integration. It will commit very atomically, like with conventional commit messages, with the author saying it was you, but Aider was helping, or Aider was doing most of the work. And it's all kind of like lumped in there that really nicely. So you can see here, it started off by doing a docs commit about the conventions, and then we clarified the conventional commit message because it wasn't using it the way I liked it. I had to update the ignore file because I wanted it to add in some stuff for the, I guess it must have added something in there, I'm not sure what. Oh, add instructions for creating a Django super user. This was my first test if this would all work, is if I could tell the AI agent, create a super user with a username admin and a password admin in Django. And it would figure out how to go do that. And it did. That's what actually this last one was. Like it added the instructions and the conventions about how to do that. So it said, here's how you get the pods. I'm looking for the app backend pod, so I know which one to get. Once I've got it, it just substitutes that backend. It does all this, thinking. Is like grabs what I think is the pod name, puts it in the right spot, and then shows you how to make like this create super user with the username email of admin. It actually goes in and sets the password via a SQL query and does all the magic. So then, I had there was an error because it was basically literally typing in backend pod name. They're like, no, you need to actually use the name you found in the previous step. So there's coaching and guidance that goes along here with all these tools. And then the last bit, which was I'm in Aider. I thought I had it already. Oh, I probably didn't commit it. Oh no, on Aider I've not done the whole thing. Okay, so here's our chance to use our fancy prompt. We're gonna copy this prompt. We're gonna see what Aider does now that it knows how to create a super user. So once I got to that point of using Django management commands, I knew this could possibly have a chance of working because you'll see what happens next. Okay. Let's get the we'll do a different model. Here we go. We're going to use the O1 model with an editor model of Sonnet, which means it'll be using the weak model of ChatGPT 4.0 mini. So now we're in architect mode. I'm going to go into straight up code mode. Oh, actually, we'll do this. This is even more fun. There's a voice mode in Aider, which will literally use the Whisper model, which, here we go. Describe this project to me in great detail. Let me know what kinds of tasks this application can do. So it will, there we go, describe this project in great detail to me. Actually, it only got that part, maybe because of the noise here. Then it goes off to use the Sonnet model to analyze, and then this is where it gets potentially using agentic. It's going to look at the file structure mapping in the Git, trying to understand what files might be important, and it'll ask you, is this going to go? This is the beauty of live demos, right? Now, I'm going to cancel that for now because I think we should actually try and do the real prompt. We're going to paste in the actual prompt, which was this project was bootstrapped with Scaf. It has Next.js templates. We're going to convert it from GraphQL to a REST API. One. We'll come back to this one. We'll let it. Oh, there we go. Okay. So now, this is why I said that Aider is semi-agentic, or kind of not fully agentic. It's going to ask you quite a bit. And also what's kind of nice with Aider, it tells you how much you're spending, like literally how much you're spending in that request and for the whole session. So it's going to ask you, can I read in this file? And you're like, yep, that's cool. Yep, I want to, oh, you know what? I'm just going to say all, like just read everything in. So it reads in a whole bunch of stuff, basically taking that as an additional context, and it's going to send it to the model, and with the prompt I gave it to basically go after this task. Can I convert this whole application from using GraphQL to using REST APIs? And so it's not a small task. It will typically take some time. While it's doing that, actually, I will talk to you about Claude Code real quick. So Claude Code, it is fully agentic, but you may want to tell it not to do certain things. Like you don't want it to do an rm-rf/, that'd be bad on your machine. So you can actually tell it, you can configure it with allowed tools. So like out of the box, it's going to have certain things it can do, like it can ls and it can cat a file. You may want it to be able to do git commands. You may want it to be able to do other specific things. So you can control the experience. Same thing with Goose. You also can specify your conventions in the Claude Markdown file. The thing I didn't like about Claude Code was that you have to teach it how to do conventional commits, and you have to teach it to commit more often as well. So it's not like Aider, which is like very Git native. You have to teach it to this. If you want to see the costs, you have to tell it, you have to ask it for the costs. They won't just volunteer that information like Aider does. And you can compact and clear the context with the /compact. So if you wanted to, because sometimes you'll get a message in Claude Code or Aider or any of those tools, like if you're using Claude 3 by Sonnet, you may have a 200,000 token limit that you can go for. You can get to that pretty quick. And then it'll start telling you like, sorry, like, API error, too many tokens, yada, yada. You can tell Claude Code, go ahead and compact that, and it'll basically summarize all the previous conversations into a smaller snippet, and then move over to basically a fresh chat, and off it goes again. What's nice about that is anything on the file system, it can go and discover again. It's not like you lost some kind of context there. It may lose some nuances of what you've been asking it because it's summarizing what was prior, but generally it's going to discover what it needs to do again and go after it. So let's look at Claude Code. Oh, here we go. It's actually asking me for adding more files. I said all again. Yes, here we go. See what happens. That one's still running. We'll go over to Claude. So on Claude Code, this is the one I ran through all the way. This was the first one on the most simplest task. The history, I could not find the history file for Claude to see the chat like I did with Aider. But if you can arrow, it has good terminal support. So /init will initialize a new Claude Markdown file with code-based documentation. And then I told it to do the same thing. I basically gave it the same prompt, adjust your conventions file, same exact thing. And then I said, create a super user called admin with the password admin in the Django container. And that worked, like out of the box. I didn't have to correct it, or it figured out how to use kubectl, like Git pods, and it knew how to, like this one was the most impressive when it came to working with the Kubernetes backend, that it just worked. Like, I was like, oh my God, that worked. Please document that so you know how to do it again, which you can do. It'll be like, oh yeah, I knew how to do that this time, because it may not know how to do it next time. That's the weird, funny thing with like large language models, right? And then I said, run Django migrations, and it did. I was like, yeah, update that too. Make sure you remember how to do that, because it works. Commit your most recent changes. This is, again, where it does not get enabled, kind of like Aider is, so I had to tell it to do that. I said add before unwritten, because it didn't automatically add the files that was like unchanged, so I had to tell it. So this, again, that's where it falls down a little bit, is on the Git side. And then, oh yeah, I did like a cost command. And then here's the prompt. And it went off and did it. And it did have an error. It did an error along the way. Let me quit out of this one. And we'll do the same command over here so you can see the commits, because this is pretty fun. Now, for these of you who are wondering, like, lazy commit is a pretty awesome command line Git client. If you've not checked it out and like the command line, this is definitely for you. refactor. So it's refactor convert GraphQL API to REST API. So Claude does put a nice little note in there when it does generate a Claude. So it's like a little promo, like in every one of your commit messages. I'm sure that's configurable and you can tell it not to do that. But that's what it does by default. Co-authored by Claude. No reply at Anthropic. You should email them for like support on your commits and see what happens. That'd be super cool. But you can see here, look at the sheer number of files that changed in one prompt. This is one prompt's worth of stuff. Some of them, multiple hundred lines of changes as it upgraded and removed dependencies. It removed Strawberry and added in Django REST framework. Like it figured all this stuff out and just sat and thought, and you could watch it. Like it'll just sit and go back and forth with itself about what I'm doing, and it's kind of. I didn't want to show that one live because it takes a while. We look at it did it on the front end container and it did it on the back end container. So yeah, there we go. 1,200 adds, 500 deletions, 27 files changed with one prompt. That's hard. Now again, what did work? I did have to do one fix. I had to tell it to, and this is on the JavaScript front end, which is the weakest part of my developer knowledge, but it did fix it. It did end up fixing it with one more prompt. Basically fix this workaround for some SWR import issue in trying to use the new REST framework instead of the GraphQL one. So I will call it a success, and Claude got me there in basically 3 prompts as I got through this. Now let's see what Aider's up to. Okay, see, this is going to be a problem. It wants to run the run server command locally. It still hasn't understood that the containers running the backend is where this stuff's actually at. So this is where this one falls down. It has, done $1.22 work, 47 in that last message. I'll tell it. I mean, you can tell it try, but good luck. It's going to fail. Yeah, I can't find it. So now he asks you, do you want to add that output back into the chat? You can say yes, and it's going to try and be like, well, now fix that. And so it knows about what happened. But that's kind of where our story will stop on Aider. It'll take a little more massaging for Aider to understand how to do all the things. Where kind of Claude Code picked it up real quick and got it. Let's move over to Cursor. We'll just do lazy get to start with here. Okay, I told it to create the Cursor guidelines, and that's all I've told it so far, which means we can give Cursor the prompt and see how successful it is. So Cursor is, again, an editor. There's no command line to it. There's a panel that pulls out from the side. This is the first prompt I gave it, which is examine the project and set up a Cursor guidelines file. It goes and literally does an ls. It reads the certain files. So this is the agentic, this is the back and forth pieces that we weren't seeing in the other 2 tools that I was demoing. Let me check for Python code conventions. Let's look for reading Python files to understand your current style so it can reproduce that as it does this. This is kind of like how to get any project started. Anytime you're working with any of these tools, tell them to document based on your current project into whatever their conventions file is, with guidelines file or whatever it is, and then that way you get a better experience right off the bat. So here kind of wrote out the conventions file. It wrote it into their Cursor guidelines JSON that we are using Kubernetes with a kind provider and the managing via tilt. So this is a little more terse because it writes it into JSON instead of markdown files. But that's just because I think Cursor is doing sits from its own management of that stuff on the backside. What else to be here? Cursor guidelines. This is all Cursor guidelines still. Here, so I was trying to get Cursor to do the super user with username and password admin, since Django management commands need to be run on the back end. So it did do the kubectl get pause, the grep for backend. It did substitute in the backend name in there, so it did figure that out. So I think actually it worked on the first go. Oh, you know what? It didn't work because my environment wasn't set up correctly. So luckily in our project, we have a make setup command that'll set up the kube config so that it can reach your whatever Kubernetes cluster you're working in. So I told it to run that, and it's like, oh yeah, cool. You do have a kind Cursor demo cluster. And then I said, you wanted to run tilt up. It was already up. It's cool. And then all worked. I think it finally got down into here. This one took a little more discussion. I had to really convince Cursor to do this. because there we go. It finally did do it, and now we can use. Let's see if it remembered how to do all this. Project was bootstrapped, blah blah blah. Okay, here we go. So now Cursor's doing the same thing. It's going to go and try and figure out all the changes that need to happen to make this even happen. We'll let that go for a bit. The next one, that was Cursor. Yeah, again, I already mentioned the rules files. I really like that setup in here. And make sure you ask it to set up your guidelines. Goose. All right. Goose's convention file is called Goose Hints. And Goose Hints, you can have a local Goose Hints in your repository. You can have a global Goose Hints that it'll pick up for your whole world, the things you're editing. Another nice thing with Goose, you can tell it to start sessions and stop sessions and resume sessions. So you can start a Goose session to be like a developer, and start a Goose session to be an infrastructure guy, and Goose session to be the database person. And so Goose can kind of operate in separate contexts with these sessions. So again, you can go into permission modes via completely autonomous, manual approval, smart approval, or chat only. So if you're really worried, just go chat only. I only want to talk to it. I don't want it to do anything. All these tools have some kind of a chat only option if you're really just trying to interrogate it. I did Goose. Yes, still going. So Cursor is still doing the job there. We'll see what happens. All right, Goose. Here we are. So I did get. Congratulations, Goose is running. Looks like this is not. Okay, now the Kubernetes cluster is up for Goose to talk to. Actually, let's make sure that's the case. Okay, so Tilt's building the container and pushing it into the cluster right now, and then it should launch here momentarily. All right, we're good to go. For those of you who think Kubernetes is slow, it is not slow. I just launched a cluster on my local machine and spun up Django, ready to develop. Oh, that's really hard to read. Good. Let's see what happens. Run the Django migrations. So based on the fact I've already set up the Goose conventions to tell it about my backend and what's going on here, it should know how to do what you just saw above, where it'll get the pods that are running in the cluster. And all of them have little catchy, snarky, funny messages about what they're doing. That's obviously nonsense. Hold on. Make setup. My guess, internal server. Not sure. Maybe I need to restart Goose. He's been running for a couple days. So he just ran the shell command make setup. Let's see if he'll do the Django migrations now, because it did figure that out. Unfolding understanding. We hope. Oh yeah, so there he goes. It's getting the pods. Okay, it seems like Kubernetes pods command didn't return anything. Interesting. Let's make setup out here just in case. And Goose has a. Oh, there we go. Another nice thing about Goose is it does store your API keys in the system keychain. So I don't have to have environment variables. I don't have to cut and paste them into here. It'll ask them for you once, and then it puts it in the keychain. So kind of like system friendly for running them back. Make run migrations. Let's see if this is even successful before we move forward. That one might be ambiguous. We'll see if it gets that. Actually, let's go check on Cursor while it's at it. Still going. Still editing files. So it's kind of cool. You've just kind of set off a developer and said, go do some cool stuff. Is that? Oh, it did want me to accept? Thank you. Oh, yeah, here we go. Now you'll keep going. Generating. Let's see what happens. Okay, well, let's actually just give it the prompt. See if Goose can figure this one out. And we'll go back to cursor and launching logic loops. Oh, so again, one of the cursor superpowers is when it gets errors, it will loop and try and fix them based on the feedback. So it's like, oh, something errored out while I was going. Let's try and fix that too. 10 linter, it also fixes a lot of linting errors. Goose will do the same. Oh, that's weird. Bad request. This is not happy. This is really not a good showing for Goose because I've actually been quite impressed with it. I'm kind of curious. Show the running pods. See if it's even working. Content parsement empty. I did run this last night while I was demoing this. And I don't remember why it happened. Well, we won't see much of Goose today, unfortunately. Cursor's still going, so that means we can go on to Junie. Junie guidelines file in the .Junie folder. You basically use it to help set up all these guidelines, similar to the other ones. Junie required a lot more coaxing than the other tools all combined. I asked it to create a super user. The first thing it did was it made a shell script in my root directory that executed a Python script that it also created in the root directory that was trying to do the thing in the container. I was like, no, don't make any like scripts, just run these commands. So it took some coaxing. I did get it to do it after some time. Let's go here to the Junie demo. Here we go. So Junie, similar to Cursor, is going to be a little pop-out window. You can see here, create a Django super user. This was my first. Oh, it doesn't show you the history. Like it's again early days for Junie. I can tell you the first time it tried to create the shell script. The second time it didn't work. You can see that there's numerous like chats here where I was attempting all of this, and then finally I told it, reread your guidelines and then run the Django migrations. Like, come on. So it will put a plan together and it will tell you what it's going to do, and then it'll send the LLM off on its like merry way trying to do all these things. I wish you could edit the plan. You can't, like, I wish you'd propose me the plan, then I could change something about it, because I'd see it start writing out the plan. Like, no, I don't want you to do that at all. Like, stop. Like, you can't change it. But again, it's very early days. It does work though. Like this did end up running this. I've not told Junie to try and do the magic prompt yet. That's actually, we'll do a fresh one here. I've also never told it to use Brave mode. Brave mode will be like, you do all the things without confirmation. Here we go. So this will be the last one we show off today in here. Yeah, here we go. 15 files, 500 changes, only 68 deletions. I wonder if that's just not the most recent version of those changes. I'm skeptical that it did it in that little changes, but I think it may have had more changes in there. Actually, let's look at the GitLab or lazy Git for it, because that's going to be a little more telling, I think. Here we go. So this is going to be, yeah, it's got like 15 files. My guess is it hasn't done the whole job as well as Cursor did. Cursor did a lot more work and actually did work. I was able to start it and actually see it working. And actually the front end rendered, the back end rendered, everything started up and worked. So my best experience with this has been my benchmark. The Scaf migrate from GraphQL to REST API has been, the hands down winner has been Claude Code so far. But I don't think that's not exactly the end of the story, unfortunately, or fortunately. This may take some time. But you see here, it will allow you to open up the terminal. Oh, but then it's so dang small. I don't like the fact that these things are panels inside the editor itself. This will, you can kind of watch along as Junie does all these things in the terminal, but you can't stop it or edit it or tell it to not do a thing. We'll see. It's examining. It's slow. I find this one to be slower. Like Junie has been noticeably slower than all the other tools that are out there. It's doing a lot more LSing, a lot more catting, a lot more reading in files, kind of naively. Where I think the folks who are behind Claude Code have gotten a lot faster at this specific part of it. Yeah, it's like scroll down. Like, okay, keep reading. Okay, we'll let Junie keep going. I will wrap this up because obviously this is a long talk because of how much stuff is in it. The big takeaways, though, I don't think any single assistant is going to be the hands down best for every workflow. There's going to be things that certain ones are going to be better at than others. With certain models combined in certain ways, are going to get you better results than others. So I think that's important to keep into consideration. Is you should keep using all these tools, trying them in different ways until you find things that work with your project, and know that may not work very well in the next project because maybe you've got different demands and different kinds of workloads or different kinds of tasks. I do love the open source tools. They are catching up very fast. I still think Aider and Goose are really good options, even though Goose let me down on the demo up here. I had a really good experience with Goose. I think it's really a great tool. And again, try several and see what fits your style. I'm open for questions. If people want to ask away now, or if you want to hit me up on the email or LinkedIn or Blue Sky, I'm kind of not on X anymore. So that's what that is. So that was a lot. What did you all think? Questions? Who's got questions? Go ahead. I've got one right back there with David. You have to unmute the mic too, I think.
Do you remember how expensive that Claude Code run was? That was really good.
It was like $3 or $4, I think, in the end, with that many changes. But I was happy with the amount of work it did for $3. I was like, whew, yeah, there we go. So the 3.7 model I found to be more expensive than the 3.5 model. So if you wanted to cut costs, you could tell Claude Code to use the 3.5 full model for the operation, and it'd probably be a little less expensive. Yeah, back. You can go ahead and grab that microphone back there.
System, how they should look running one.
Yes, you can definitely do that. You can absolutely mix and match locally running models with API cloud versions of the models. And make sure you unmute the mic. I think there's a button on the bottom. If it's red, it's muted. There we go.
How much time, and I guess the real question is how much productivity do you think you've gained from agentic workflows specifically? Do you find that you can give it a ticket or give it a task and actually go do something else? Or do you spend a lot of your time babysitting it?
See if Junie's still working.
So,
that's an unfair question for me to answer because I am not typically a day-to-day developer. For my usage of it, I get a lot of value out of it because I know exactly, as a senior, been there developer, I know exactly what I want right away. I know kind of the path I would take, and I will talk to it in that way that I get what I want real quick. Last week, I wrote a Slack bot that talks to DigitalOcean's app platform because I want to be able to have a bot that spins up a Kubernetes or a Docker container on demand and allows me to shut it down on demand as well from Slack. And it took me about maybe an hour total, start to finish. And I did it with Junie. I mean, I know I talked poorly of Junie, but Junie actually did that and was really productive, and I was really happy. I started with a blank directory, nothing in it, and I wrote zero code. I did not type a line into any of the files. I purely guided it through the Junie prompts to make that happen. So that probably would have taken me twice, if not 3 times longer, if I was just oh, now I got to deal with API keys. And it gave me a README and said, go find this API key here, go set these OAuth permissions for Slack to do these operations. So it told me how to guide it. It actually guided me through making the Slack app. So that alone was also helpful because I didn't have to go research this part and research that part and research that part. It had it all in there. So I would say your mileage may vary, and how you guide it will be indicative of the kind of performance you'll get back out of it. But I think everyone can benefit from it. I find it I don't know, but I would think that people who are less experienced at coding might have a little more trouble with these kinds of tools because they don't have that mindset I have approaching it, from years of experience of coding. But these are great tools to learn that kind of experience because if you can walk through it in smaller chunks, I think you'll get an easier understanding as a more junior developer.
That makes sense. I had a second question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So results aside, between the different agentic processes that you mentioned here, if I'm on like a project with a lot of contributors and I don't want to like impact other people's workflows, is there one of these tools that you would recommend that like doesn't commit extra files like to that repository that I can kind of like set up for just my experience without affecting other people?
So none of these tools are a substitute or a replacement for a good software development lifecycle process. Pull requests and code reviews and commit squashing, all those practices still apply. And I think you can use any of these tools then if you're following those kinds of best practices. If you have either fork the repo or have a branch you're working off of, you can still squash those things when they hit the main commit, the main branch. If you're doing like trunk-based development, again, all best practices. If you don't have some of these best practices already in place in your organization, you're going to run into friction because you will have people. I mean, it's kind of the same thing when we got the code formatters. Someone opens up a file in their IDE and the code formatter like rewrites the whole thing, and someone commits that, and you're like, well, what was the actual change? Same problem. You had to come up with conventions and ways that you knew you were going to deal with that, and same thing applies here. I don't think the world hasn't changed in a way that is still not true. Laura, do you want to go with someone online?
Sure. So going back to some MCP stuff, we had a question said some enterprises ban the use of LLMs for fear of IP leaking.
Yep.
Does MCP keep our data in-house and away from the LLM's database?
It depends, because MCP can work for internal data or internal sources of data and external sources of data. So you could be running your own MCP servers that are specific to internal on your own network inside your four walls, or some of them, again, you kind of have to audit it and know what you're getting yourself into when you launch one of these tools, because the MCP is capable of a lot of things. And so you may want to actually be writing your own MCPs to data sources you have inside your own org so that you can now expose these to other business units, because MCP is not just a developer tool. Like the Goose folks at Block, they built that so that everybody in the org can benefit from getting access to the data they needed at the right times via natural language. So you have to just, again, be aware of where your data is going. If you're using cloud-based APIs for your models, you're sending your data outside of your building, outside of your laptop. That has certain implications that everyone needs to be aware of. Looks like Junie did something anyway.
Awesome. And then the last question from online was, you talked about, using, one of the tools to really, document it, so it showed when it works. Do you have any of that you can show a bit of the document process?
Like to show how an application works, like describe this application? Kind of a task? Is that what they're asking?
Feel free to chime in. So Chris, it's from Christian. So that the LLM remembers when it did a thing right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was me just maybe being a little overly careful, because I got it right the first try. I was like, please make sure you document that. So that was because Claude Code somehow figured it out so quickly. It as a human, I couldn't comprehend that the bot would get it that quick. And so I was like, make sure you write it down, because I would need to write it down. I would never remember how to do that twice in a row. So that was, again, just me saying, in that session, we just did a bunch of stuff. Take what you just learned, add it to the guidelines or conventions file. I think that's a good practice also. You can also tell it to start writing docs for your application too. Like you can say, add into the docs folder information about our Terraform layout. Actually, we can try that right here. Create more documentation about our use of Terraform in this project. So this should recognize that we have a docs folder in the repo. We have sets of Terraform files in a TF directory or Terraform directory. I would love to have docs about what's currently happening, and it should produce Markdown because it sees lots of Markdown files in our structure. Yeah, so it's actually literally reading the Terraform files in that Terraform directory right now to try and understand what's going on. So search for all Terraform related files and then read them. And then it's going to like hopefully write some cool docs that like I can now read and understand what's going on because I didn't write them. I didn't write the Terraform, that is.
Hey, so if you can hear me, I
can.
asked a question on the chat. Yeah, so I'm just beginning with kind of like agentic stuff, and I've worked in machine learning for a long time. The non-deterministic models that they've gone with make me very iffy about how all this stuff works. So yeah, the reason I asked that question was if you get it to do something and you don't want it to do something different tomorrow or any other problems that you pointed out, I guess, were you saying you're telling it within the session, like it adds that to the context? And then if you do a different session, that's kind of lost.
Potentially, yeah. So if you start Claude Code, for example, and each of them manages context differently. Like when you launch a new Aider session, I believe it wipes you clean and kind of starts you fresh again, kind of the equivalent of doing /reset. Or if you're inside of here, let's go ahead and edit this. If you go inside of here and you restart Claude Code, I think it keeps your current session versus like I think it was a Goose where you could start multiple sessions and have them named. So each of them have a little bit different capacity for those kinds of sessions. And I'll say that they've gotten a lot. All these models and all these tools have gotten a lot better at not hallucinating. Not that they wouldn't, but they are just a lot better about it. Like they're really trying to stick to the facts. Like they've got a great source of data associated or available to them in your code repository. So it means they can make hopefully good comments back to you. But this is still running. Pretty cool. See here. We can probably watch it in a live over here on the Aider. Yeah.
I know. After you.
Oh yeah. Can you grab the mic for him? Make sure you unmute it. Hit the bottom button there.
So I know that this is also obviously a really impressive way of documenting code or documenting its own code. Have you used this to document other people's code? Like say have you tried it on SQL databases or Databricks and stuff like that?
I've not tried it on a Databricks project, but I have tried it on very random stuff that's been tossed my way. And the first question I'll ask is like, describe what you see. And then you start iterating with it, the conversation, just like you would with any other developer. It's basically like somebody sitting next to you and you're kind of pair programming. So it will then start writing out docs, depending on what tool you're using. I've had it write out like, project specifications, like write me the user stories you think might be applying here. And it can go out there and try and do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking is because I've got a team about 30 people from Deloitte that helped build a gigantic database for my company. And there's not a single comment in any of the Databricks sheets.
That hurts.
So yeah, I need documentation.
I'm the wrong one on the Aider. Hold on. See if we can find the docs for Claude. That's where I did this. There we go. Terraform usage. This is the new Terraform usage guide that we just wrote. We've got sandbox staging production, which is accurate. That gave me the directory structure, key components, the modules, the environment-specific configurations, the workflow for using it. This is all was written by Claude as we were sitting here talking about something else, which is pretty awesome. All right, back here.
So a couple questions. One is with Cursor. I know there's like you mentioned that these all use the API pricing. I know Cursor has like a subscription model. Do you know if there's agentic things included in that?
So Cursor has an interesting pricing model. So you pay for Cursor, and then Cursor gives you like a quota of quick queries and slow queries and certain number of like tokens. You can also bring your own API keys to Cursor and then get around those limitations. So that's kind of my extent of knowledge of like Cursor's pricing and how you can use the different models and bring your own API keys. So if you pay for like the OpenAPI, highest end model or whatever, you can now use it in Cursor.
And then my other question was, I liked what you showed about the Aider leaderboard with the different models and how much they cost. But I was curious if you had a feel for between these
tools, let's say the model's the same, you use Claude 3.7 or whatever.
Yeah.
Are any of them more greedy than others as far as like how many tokens they're throwing at the problem?
Yeah, the Claude 3.7 is definitely more greedy on how many tokens it throws at the problem. It's also more expensive on what the output tokens cost if you're looking at 3.7 pricing. That was a big change from 3.5 to 3.7. So that's why it shows up a little more expensive.
I guess I'm wondering though, in terms of Aider versus Claude Code versus
I mentioned earlier on in the talk that someone has made an MCP server that sits in front of Aider. It's so they can use it from Claude Code, because Claude Code can be really expensive on the input and output tokens. Aider has a diff mode. So when you're using the editors inside of cursor Aider, Aider, good lord. That's a lot when you do 5. Aider has multiple modes for how it sends back and forth the context to the models. And so in some of the modes, it can send the whole file, which is expensive. In some of the modes, it sends just the diff when you're going to like the editor mode. And so you can tell Claude Code, use an MCP for making changes, like make the editor actually run an Aider, and you have Aider use the quick mode with the diff on, so you get a lot less charges. Like that's why they did this like MCP with Aider and behind it. There's exactly that reason, is that Aider is very efficient with how it can send back and forth the diffs. Like we were doing an example of this. It took us about an hour and a half to spend $10 on Aider, and we were doing a lot of work. Like we were building the whole set of Django models from the ERD diagrams and build front ends that are Next.js, built components. I mean, we were going nuts, and we still only spent $10 because of how efficient Aider was. That's why no one of these tools is probably going to be your sole answer. You're probably going to be looking at different tools for different kinds of tasks.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I can go all night. And so could the AIs.
I go ahead and we're...
Yeah, we'll go online. So, who is online?
Sure. Just, I was wondering, you said you didn't write any code. So was this all prompt engineering and interacting with them and no kind of agentic programming of workflows?
Correct. I didn't, well, so for the whole prompt I showed was all I did for this basic benchmark. I also didn't write it. I didn't write any code. This is all just what came out of our scaffolded version of our opinions on a Django app. So that already has a lot of interesting knowledge baked into it because of what we do, our opinions we have, and what we install and how we document it. There's already stuff that was already in here. Like you can see that the Terraform usage was a new doc written by Claude, but these other ones existed, and the other tools read those in and look at them. Like for example, if you look at our development doc, it's going to tell you we use kubectl kind and tilt. It's going to tell you how we, clone it, how we make setup, how we tilt. Like, so if you feed it some of these things with some of your conventions, it could help, but it needed more help. Like it wasn't enough. That's why I had to go write some of those convention files to get them. So I could just prompt it only and not go write any code.
Very cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. David.
That conventions.markdown file, is that something you've seen out in the community, or is that something that Aider wanted to write? Or did you coach it?
I think it's just a convention each of these tools has come up with. Like they each have their own method of doing that, and then the one for Aider just was called conventions.md. Another thing with Aider, I didn't show it off, but Aider you can type. I'll show it. Hopefully it works. Oh, yeah, let's create an implementation file. Yeah, I'm running 5 Kubernetes clusters and 5 coding agent sessions. Like it's 5 of everything. 5 of all the things are going on here. With Aider, I can type web and give it a URL to go scrape. So for example, if you were wanting to put some new library into your application, you could feed it the getting started page for that library as context. It reads the page, and now you say, add this library to do XYZ in my app, and it now knows how to install it because you just fed it the web page for how to install it. So I think I'll just feed it the 6-step page to start with here. And so, I don't have Playwright. So it installs Playwright into your virtual environment. And since I upgraded Aider, it wiped that out and I need to reinstall it. But basically it just uses Playwright under the covers.
Aider doesn't have MCP, but Aider has a lot of built-in tools that look like MCP, basically. So these like slash commands to read that in. You can also tell Aider to read certain files, not edit certain files. Like you can tell them to like, I want to open this file for editing, or I want to open this file just for reading because like I want to read the development markdown document and understand how our development environment works. So that's, again, kind of how Aider works with context and things. Any other questions? Yeah.
Where do you think the line is on local models and what you can get out of them? So first of all, like what local model do you reach for most? And then also like what's an example of a task that you think is kind of right on the edge of the capability of a local model versus something that you think a local model can't quite do yet?
If you've not tried Mistral Small, and this is a 4-year-old laptop as well. See, oh, it doesn't. There you go. Check this out. I do this as a demo. This is running a local model on my machine using Ollama, in addition to 5 other Kubernetes clusters running, in addition to 5 other like code agents all running. Build me a Django app for a neighborhood tool sharing program. It's a little demo I do. This is, again, all local. The benefit of Mistral Small is it's a very large output window, which means it can sit and think about the application, tells you how to install it, but it'll start writing all the code. Like it's going to give me a models file, it's going to give me an admin file, it's going to give me the views, the URLs, all the routes. Like it's not super slow. It's slower than like maybe using One Mini or some of the faster API models. But this is running on a 4-year-old laptop. It just happens to have a lot of memory. There's 64 gigabytes of RAM in here. But that's Mistral Small, the full version of it, running local. Nothing went off my laptop to generate what's happening right here. So I think they're very capable. Anyone else? Yeah, it's either you've got views, got the models, we got admins, we got views. If you can copy paste that in. I mean, I could have told Aider to use this model, and it would have just written the files. Like that's the difference here. I just ran the chat version of this, but if you connected it to Aider, that would all just gone into your file system and run. Yeah, login required. This is pretty amazing. Creating templates now. There's HTML. The thing is, like about 6 months ago, or maybe a year ago, your best was kind of Llama 2, Llama 3, and that had an 8K token limit on the output, which means it wouldn't have been able to write half of this. I can't remember what the output token limit is on Mistral Small, but it's considerable because it's still going. All right, any more questions? Are we ready for a live code demo or live code of the drawing? I should have done a demo with the agents to write it. Didn't think about that. Here we go. You can watch how this is all made. So if you're RSVP'd for Meetup, I will grab the spreadsheet and we'll do a quick little this is current session. Here we go. Oh yeah, and thank you all for coming and listening to me go on and on about agentic AIs.